Welcome back to our channel, where we dive deep into the glamorous, scandalous, and utterly unpredictable world of Los Angeles fashion. Today is a thrilling day to unpack the latest, jaw-dropping developments that are about to change everything we thought we knew about our favorite families. The halls of Forrester Creations have always been a battleground for power, legacy, and matters of the heart, but the current atmosphere has reached a terrifying boiling point. For weeks, the tension within the executive suite has been suffocating, driven primarily by Brooke Logan Forrester's relentless and aggressive campaign to unseat Steffy Forrester Finnegan and claim the co-CEO chair for herself. Brooke has utilized every ounce of her influence over Ridge Forrester, pushing him to the absolute brink in an attempt to force his daughter out of her rightful position of corporate supremacy. This relentless power grab has created a toxic environment, fracturing family loyalties and setting the stage for a confrontation of epic proportions. The stakes have never been higher, and the desperation echoing through the glass walls of the fashion empire is palpable. Steffy Forrester Finnegan finds herself backed into a dangerous and isolating corner. With Hope Logan having officially defected to the rival Logan brand, Steffy is acutely aware that the walls are closing in on her reign. She feels the immense, crushing weight of her grandmother Stephanie Forrester's legacy bearing down upon her shoulders, demanding that she protect the family empire from what she perceives as the ultimate Logan infiltration. Steffy is exhausted, paranoid, and fiercely determined to hold onto the throne that her grandfather Eric built. She watches in horror as her father, Ridge, seemingly wavers under Brooke's intoxicating spell, fearing that it is only a matter of time before she is stripped of her title and her dignity. This profound sense of vulnerability pushes Steffy to seek out unconventional and deeply perilous solutions to secure her future. Enter Shauna Fulton, making a chaotic and highly publicized return to Los Angeles. While Shauna initially marched into Bill Spencer's office to pitch an audacious business proposal for the expanding Logan brand, her true, hidden agenda is far more personal and insidious. Shauna has never truly recovered from the intoxicating thrill of her fraudulent Las Vegas marriage to Ridge Forrester. The taste of being Mrs. Ridge Forrester left her with a lingering, obsessive addiction, and she has returned to the city with her sights firmly set on reclaiming the man she believes is her ultimate prize. However, standing directly in her path is the formidable, seemingly immovable obstacle of Brooke Logan. Shauna knows that as long as Brooke breathes the same air as Ridge, her fantasies of a grand romantic reunion will remain nothing more than dust. In a dramatic and terrifying twist of fate, these two desperate women, Steffy and Shauna, find themselves colliding in the shadows of Los Angeles. Previously bitter enemies divided by family loyalties and past grievances, they suddenly experience a chilling realization. They share an ultimate, unifying goal. They both possess a burning, all-consuming desire to eliminate Brooke Logan from her dominant position in their respective lives. Steffy needs Brooke completely eradicated from the corporate hierarchy to protect her CEO's seat and her family's legacy, while Shauna needs Brooke permanently removed from the romantic equation to win back Ridge's heart. This mutual hatred becomes the dark foundation for an unholy and deeply venomous alliance, born of desperation and fueled by a shared thirst for absolute victory. Meeting in secret, far away from the prying eyes of the Forrester and Logan families, Steffy and Shauna begin to secretly devise a highly sophisticated and devastating plan. Their initial objective is to orchestrate a massive, career-ending corporate scandal that will completely discredit Brooke before the Forrester Creations Board of Directors. They meticulously plot to frame Brooke for egregious financial embezzlement or catastrophic corporate espionage, intending to manufacture a paper trail so damning that Ridge would be forced to terminate her employment and banish her from the company forever. The plan is designed to be a bloodless coup, a surgical strike against Brooke's reputation that would leave her professionally radioactive and entirely stripped of her power and influence. For Steffy, this conspiracy, while morally questionable, is rationalized as a necessary evil in the ruthless game of corporate warfare. She convinces herself that she is merely protecting the company's stock price, her family's heritage, and her own hard-earned position. She views the impending scandal as a strategic maneuver, completely failing to recognize the profound darkness that is rapidly consuming her new partner in crime. Steffy believes she is in control of the narrative, orchestrating a boardroom takedown that will end with Brooke's humiliating resignation. She severely underestimates the depths of Shauna's depravity and the violent, unhinged nature of her true intentions. Shauna Fulton, however, is playing an entirely different and far more deadly game. While Steffy is focused on corporate chess, Shauna is driven by a vicious, obsessive madness. As the days pass, Shauna comes to a chilling realization. A mere corporate scandal will never be enough to truly eliminate the threat that Brooke poses. Shauna knows the history of Ridge and Brooke. She knows that Ridge has forgiven Brooke for countless transgressions in the past. Even if Brooke is fired in disgrace, Ridge's heart will inevitably soften, and he will find his way back to his beloved Logan. To Shauna's twisted mind, there is only one absolute, permanent solution to her problem. Brooke Logan cannot just be discredited. She must be physically removed from the board entirely. Without consulting her corporate co-conspirator, Shauna goes completely rogue, executing a horrifying escalation of their plan. She lures an unsuspecting Brooke to a secluded, abandoned property on the desolate outskirts of Los Angeles under the guise of an urgent, confidential meeting regarding Ridge. When Brooke arrives, expecting a tense conversation, she is instead met with sudden, brutal violence. Shauna viciously attacks and subdues the Forrester matriarch, crossing a terrifying moral line from which there is absolutely no return. What began as a sophisticated plot for corporate sabotage has instantly devolved into a barbaric, terrifying kidnapping, plunging the storyline into an abyss of darkness. Brooke awakens to find herself bound and held captive in a cold, damp, and isolated environment, the stark reality of her terrifying situation crashing down upon her. The sheer disbelief that Shauna Fulton has resorted to such extreme, psychotic measures leaves Brooke in a state of profound shock. She looks into the cold, dead eyes of her captor and realizes that this is no longer a battle for a CEO title or a corner office. This is a desperate, primal fight for her very survival. Shauna taunts her helpless victim, her voice dripping with venom as she details her deranged fantasy of stepping into Brooke's shoes and claiming Ridge as her own forever. The psychological torment inflicted upon Brooke is agonizing, compounding the physical discomfort of her captivity. Meanwhile, Steffy receives a cryptic and unsettling message from Shauna, summoning her to the undisclosed location. Steffy arrives expecting to review forged documents or finalize the details of their corporate frame-up, only to step into a living nightmare. As she pushes open the heavy, rusted doors of the abandoned building, her eyes lock onto the horrifying sight of her stepmother, bound and terrified, with Shauna standing over her like a triumphant predator. The blood drains from Steffy's face as the crushing, suffocating realization hits her. She has been dragged into a horrific criminal vortex. She is no longer just a ruthless CEO. She is now legally and morally an accessory to a major felony. An explosive and frantic confrontation erupts between Steffy and Shauna in the dim, dusty light of the warehouse. Steffy, paralyzed by panic and overwhelming guilt, demands that Shauna release Brooke immediately. She screams about the consequences, the police, her children, and the absolute destruction of her entire life if this crime is discovered. Steffy attempts to physically intervene, desperate to undo the catastrophic damage, but Shauna violently shoves her back. With chilling, sociopathic calmness, Shauna informs Steffy that they are bound together in this conspiracy now. If Shauna goes down for kidnapping, she promises to drag Steffy down with her, exposing their initial plot to destroy Brooke and ensuring that Steffy loses everything she holds dear. Steffy is entirely trapped in a web of her own making. As the two women scream and argue over her fate, the physical and psychological toll on Brooke reaches an unbearable, catastrophic climax. Brooke has endured decades of heartbreak, scandal, and trauma, but the sheer, visceral terror of being held hostage by a deranged woman, coupled with the shocking betrayal of seeing Steffy complicit in the room, is simply too much for her body to withstand. The intense stress, the adrenaline coursing through her veins, and the agonizing panic trigger a severe physiological breakdown. Brooke begins to gasp frantically for air, her face contorting in pure, unadulterated agony as a crushing, suffocating pain erupts within her chest. The onset of the massive heart attack is sudden, violent, and utterly terrifying. Brooke collapses against her restraints, her hands desperately trying to reach her chest as her breathing turns into ragged, agonizing wheezes. Steffy's anger instantly evaporates, replaced by a raw, primal horror. She screams for Shauna to untie Brooke, frantically pulling out her phone to dial emergency services, her hands shaking violently. But Shauna, consumed by her murderous obsession, coldly steps forward and slaps the phone out of Steffy's hand, shattering it against the concrete floor. Shauna watches with a chilling, detached fascination as her greatest rival fights a losing battle for her life, refusing to offer even a shred of mercy. In those tragic, agonizing final moments, the vibrant, indomitable spirit of Brooke Logan is extinguished. A woman who defined an entire era of Los Angeles fashion, who loved passionately and fought fiercely for her family, takes her final, rattling breath on the cold, unforgiving floor of an abandoned warehouse, surrounded by her absolute worst enemies. The light slowly fades from Brooke's eyes, and a deafening, heavy silence falls over the room. The matriarch of the Logan family, the eternal love of Ridge Forrester, is dead. The sheer finality of the moment is devastating, a permanent and irreversible tragedy that shatters the very foundation of their universe. Steffy collapses to her knees, a soul-crushing, agonizing wail tearing from her throat as she stares at Brooke's lifeless body. She is consumed by a profound, suffocating guilt that will undoubtedly haunt her for the rest of her days. She realizes with absolute, horrifying clarity that her life, as she knew it, is completely over. She is no longer the proud, unyielding CEO of Forrester Creations. She is a criminal, bound by blood, terror, and forced silence to a cold-blooded murderer. The Forrester empire is forever tainted by this unspeakable atrocity, and the landscape of Los Angeles will never, ever be the same. The war is over, but the cost was a human life, leaving behind a legacy